What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm trying to make things a little bit different, but I'm also going to be touching on some stuff that we touch on in other videos, but put it all into one video. We are going to be looking at the draft, free agency, and offseason needs for the Detroit Lions heading into the offseason. Let's get it started. Okay, so now we're not going to go into detail on everything. We're kind of just going to give a complete overview on a few things in this video, mainly looking at needs. And then in other videos, you know how I make my top fives. We'll do top 5 players and stuff. We'll continue to do those. So I already have a lot of them out, so you can usually just find some of them as you scroll through. Make sure you click the sub button. Okay, I don't ask for it a lot, but you know what? I thought I would remind you because I know a lot of y'all are here and you're new and you forget to click subscribe. Some of y'all forget you're subscribed. I've had stories. So let's just get this thing started. Okay, so the Lions are expected to have around $50 million in cap space. That's before, you know, all of the cuts and things like that, so that can definitely improve. Right now it's like around $47 million, at least from what I've been able to find using some of my resources. Also looking at the draft, they have, I believe it is 6 picks in this year's draft, but they also do have the 3rd pick in the draft, which a lot of people believe that they could potentially trade back and acquire a lot more picks, which I think is the popular option right now, and trust me, I'd be okay with it. Now, with all that being said, and with, you know, knowing how much money we're going to have this offseason, let's look at our few needs. Now, I've really mentioned a lot of my biggest concerns and what I think the biggest needs are heading into next season, but I really haven't put it into just a simple video. At least I don't think I have. Maybe I have. I dropped something. Maybe I haven't. Let me pick that back up. But basically, okay, whatever. All right, so looking at some of the needs, the first need that I think we have, the biggest need this offseason is defensive tackle, and I think this one's kind of easily overlooked, even though in my eyes it is the biggest need. You know, I think there's definitely a place to look, and that's why I need you guys to answer in the comments below. What is the Lions' biggest need this offseason? Okay, answer that question in the comments below. But basically, in my eyes, defensive tackle is the biggest need. I don't think there's like a need that we're looking at that's like, oh, that is the need, right? Some teams need a quarterback. Some teams need a wide receiver. Us, I don't know if there's that need, but for me, if I had to pick that need, I don't know why I keep saying that, it'd be defensive tackle. Defensive tackle looks really sketchy to me at this point. Damon Harrison looks like he may retire, or, you know, I don't know what his future looks like. I still believe, I'm under the assumption that he's going to retire. I still think he's going to retire, but even if he doesn't, he's not the same player. We could potentially trade him away, which honestly, for returns, I'd be okay with that. No hate to Snacks Harrison. He is a baller. Well, he's not a baller anymore, but he's still Damon Harrison, right? He's a legend. So I'm not exactly sure. But we know last year's production dropped completely. Over 30 less tackles in 1 less game. It was a completely different Damon Harrison than we saw the year before. A'Shawn Robinson is on the last year of his contract. Well, his contract is actually up now. We'll see if we sign him again. I don't believe we will. His production really dropped off as well. And if both of those guys are gone, well, now we're really depleted at the defensive tackle position. And that's where I believe our biggest need is at that point in time. Okay, looking at our defense, we do have a couple of solid edge rushers. We paid Trey Flowers a lot of money, gave him a huge $90 million contract, and he played really well, especially for not having a lot of help around him and only bringing like 3 guys and blitzing the least amount out of any team in the entire NFL. We just didn't blitz much, but, you know, a lot of that had to do with some injuries. We still had Trey Flowers, who put up 7.5 sacks on the season. And then we had Devon Kennard across from him, who did a similar thing with 7 more sacks. So those 2 guys were doing their thing, but we were very depleted on the outside. But the one place we're missing pressure and a run stopper, which we had the year before in Snacks Harrison. Because if you can remember, the year we brought in Snacks Harrison for that time he played, and then, you know, that time, Snacks Harrison was that dude. It was like, oh, wow, this defense just completely turned around because we got Damon Harrison. Then last season, he just took a complete production drop, and you could really tell because he knew it. He talked about it like, I don't know if I want to play, you know, if I can't be as productive and stuff like that. It was like, oh, dang, Snacks, you're hitting us hard with that one. But knowing that he may retire and also his production dropping, defensive tackle is a huge need, right? It's a huge need with those 2 guys. We don't know what their future looks like. So I think there's 2 ways, obviously, to go about this free agency or in the draft. And I think we could use 2 different type of defensive linemen here. We could use a defensive lineman and a defensive tackle that can get pressure. Obviously, the most notable name comes to your head. That is Chris Jones. Chris Jones was a guy that could get tons of pressure. I believe he had 9 sacks from basically the defensive tackle position. Sometimes he lined up on the edge because he could get that much pressure. He plays for the Kansas City Chiefs, and Chiefs don't have great defense, but they got a really good defensive line. Over 40 sacks from the Kansas City Chiefs. Us, on the other hand, we were somewhere in the 20s. So, yeah, there's a big difference there between us two. And defensive tackle was a huge reason for that. They had a lot of defensive linemen that were really talented. And for us, I feel like if we can finish out the defensive line and we can just stack the interior, our defensive line is going to be really good. I mean, we've seen a lot of success with a great defensive line. A lot of teams have success with a great defensive line, especially in our scheme where we don't blitz a lot. Defensive tackle would be awesome. Also, run stopper. We don't have a main run stopper. That was Snacks Harrison. And you could tell we went from being a really good run defense, I believe we were top 10, to like 23rd in the league after Snacks Harrison's bad production. 30 less tackles. That's strictly run stopping. We lost a run stopper there, or we lost a lot of production from our main run stopper. So I would love to add another one of those guys. Now, one guy I'm looking at for run stopper is actually in the draft. I believe he could be our second-round pick, and that is Raekwon Davis out of Alabama. He doesn't have a lot of pressure. I believe he only had 0.5 sacks. But it was the run-stopping ability that he brought to the table that the Lions could add. And if they could add a guy from the defensive tackle position that could also give them pressure, those two guys would be awesome to bring into the Detroit Lions. Chris Jones, obviously my main guy. Javon Hargrave is another guy that you can put out there. There's a lot of defensive linemen that are going to be available that can also play defensive tackle spot. But I think a run stopper is interesting. And Raekwon Davis is a healthy player, so that makes me like, okay, yeah, let's bring him in. There are some other guys out there like Ross Blacklock, who a lot of people are interested in out of TCU. But the problem I have with Ross is the fact that he missed an entire year due to an injury. Now, he does get more pressure, but he's not the same run stopper. So, it really depends on what you're looking for there. Next biggest need is offensive line. Yeah, I know offensive line doesn't seem like a big need on surface because it was better, but let's look position by position, and you tell me if you think offensive line needs some improving. At left tackle, we have Taylor Decker, who I'm not even saying we need to improve. Taylor Decker's fine. He was pretty solid last year at the left tackle position. Definitely a better year for him. Here's where the problems come in. Left guard. We knew last season left guard was not a very good position group for us. We had rotation going on. When you have rotation going on at a spot, that's usually not a good thing. And that was between Joe Dahl and the man's name I never can remember for some reason. But those two guys were rotating at that spot. Kenny Wiggins, that's what it is. And Joe Dahl does have another year on his contract, so he will return, right? He can return. But I don't necessarily know if I want to see Joe Dahl as a starter. Yes, he can do it all, but I think he can do it all as a backup, and I'd be good with that. Now, he could start, potentially, because now let's move on to the center position where we have Frank Ragnow, who is our best offensive lineman, who's a baller. Okay, Frank Ragnow was a beast of a pick, and let's not even worry about that position, but his right guard is where a lot of questions come into the table. Okay, now you got Graham Glasgow, who we don't even know if we're going to bring back next season, and if Graham Glasgow's not back, now you're looking at maybe a left guard, definitely a right guard, and then potentially, well, what's next? Right tackle. We have Ricky Wagner. Ricky Wagner's age, his injuries, his unreliableness, and pretty much being the worst offensive lineman on the team. Yeah, those three things make up a guy that could potentially not be traded, but be cut this offseason. I would love to trade him, but he may even just be cut. So, offensive line, we definitely have some holes. Now, left guard, with Joe Dahl, I feel like left guard is a position that we definitely could fill in a better player there. I mean, Joe Dahl's cool and all. If we have to keep him around, I'm cool with it. We can make it work. But you definitely could upgrade that. And I think offensive lineman needs a major, major upgrade. Keeping Matthew Stafford protected is obviously important, number one. We lost every game without him. So I think if anything tells you how important Stafford is, that does. If you lose every game without your starting quarterback, that's a problem, okay? Especially when you play 8 of them. So offensive lineman needs to be one of our key needs, okay? That needs to be something where we focus. Now, offensive line, we have a couple of options. If we bring back Graham Glasgow, wow, that would be really nice. Now, he might want some money. He may test free agency. I wouldn't be mad if he did because I respect him for that. He can go get some money. Go get your money, my man. But if we could bring him back and spend a pretty good amount of money on him, that would be okay because then at least you have a solidified right guard still, and now you can focus on left guard and right tackle. You can really pick which one you want to address. I think right tackle for me would be the first one to address. I could really see Rick Wagner being traded or cut this offseason to save some money. I think Rick Wagner his time could be up, and I'd be okay with that. Right tackle definitely needs an upgrade. Looking at right tackle, yeah, Rick Wagner is definitely our worst offensive lineman. His age is there, and if you wait another year, you're going to have to replace him at some point, so why not do it now if you can? You're probably not going to get a lot in return already, but if you can get anything, then do it. Just send him off. If you can get anything for Rick Wagner, send him off and try to find a replacement. Now, right tackle, there are ways to replace your tackle this offseason. There are some nice tackles out there, especially the man from Tennessee that I really like, and that's the guy that I think would make the most sense to be a potential impact player right away. He has a lot of talent. Then you could also look in the draft. There's a lot of third round and later targets that I see at the tackle position. You could go earlier. I mean, say we trade back in the first round. Now you're looking at the big three. You got Wirfs, you got Thomas, and you got Jedrick Wills. If you go get one of those ballers, then you can get rid of Rick Wagner and say, okay, see you later. Let's get Graham back. Now you have a stacked O-line. So that comes in next. Now, finally, my third biggest need, I think you can mix. There's a mix here. I think it's either edge, cornerback, or linebacker. You guys comment which one you think it is. I don't know. Edge, definitely, you can always use some help. I mean, we saw the depth have a lot of injuries. We could always use like a beast, a really big playmaker, or really just some depth help when we saw the injuries. Injuries to Austin Bryant, Kevin Strong. A lot of guys were injured last season on the edge side of things. And again, you can't have too many. Bob Quinn's talked about it. Next up, cornerback. I think if you keep Darius Slay around, it still is a little bit of a need, but not as big. Obviously, if you get rid of him, it's a huge need, and maybe our biggest need, but I wouldn't get rid of him. So assuming we don't get rid of him, which I don't think would make a lot of sense, keeping Darius Slay. Now you have Darius Slay as number one. You potentially, Amani could be your number two next season, but you are losing Rashawn Melvin. If you lose Rashawn Melvin, who was your number two last season, now that could be a place where maybe you're looking to replace it. Or you're putting Amani there and you're looking for a fourth cornerback just for depth. It's really on how much you believe Amani's going to be that guy next season. I would stay on the side and be cautious of, okay, he's only a second-year player. He didn't play that much last. He played a few games, but hey, let's make sure we at least have some reliable options. There could be Chris Harris Jr., which I think is the biggest option, the cornerback from the Denver Broncos, who was getting paid a lot, but he's aging, and I don't think he's going to get a very big contract at all after this year. So I think Chris Harris does make a lot of sense. The Lions were interested in him at the trade deadline. They didn't make the move to go get him. I guess the trade did still work out, but now that he's a free agent, now you could do it, bring him in, make him number two, keep Amani in the rotation, keep him getting time, but also kind of slowly working his way into that starting role because he's going to have to take it over soon. Maybe you only get Chris Harris on a one-year deal, or maybe after this year with Slay, you just let him go. And then potentially Amani's going to step up into that role. At slot, I think we're fine with Justin Coleman. So yeah, you can either use depth or number two cornerback, whichever way you want to look at that. And then finally, linebacker. Interior linebacker specifically. I think Tavai is good, but it's that other position in Jared Davis. Now, maybe our new linebacker coach loves Jared Davis. He's like, hey, I can make this work. In that case, forget it. But also outside linebackers. Maybe you want some more edge rushers or linebackers that can cover. Our linebackers can't cover very well. I'll just say it like that. They don't cover well. So coverage linebackers could definitely be a big need. Those are the biggest needs, and with our resources, with this basically 6th pick in the draft and a lot of money, we do have a pretty good amount of money this offseason. We can fill out a lot of these needs. There's definitely multiple ways to do it, and I've talked about it in my Lions offseason strategy. If you guys want to go check that out, make sure you do so. And if you also want to see me break down these positions, let me know. But let me know which position to do first. You want to see defensive tackles that we could go acquire in free agency or the draft or both. Let me know. Also, make sure you click the like and the sub button if you want to keep yourself updated because I don't know what you know, but you know something. Thank you, Prop, for watching, and I'm out.